a specific frequency to affect the way we behave. It's true a specific frequency.
I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory, and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed.
The people around you aren't pushing you forward, they're silently holding you back, and you won't even realize it until it's too late. The truth is simple. No one builds an empire with two hands alone. Behind every great achievement is an alliance, a circle of minds who contribute vision, challenge weakness, and hold the dreamer accountable. It's about allies, people who believe in the mission as much as you do, people who see what you're building and help you build it stronger. These are not just friends. They are strategic, chosen voices who sharpen your thinking and multiply your strength. Where you see a wall, they find the ladder. Where you hesitate, they push forward. Every powerful movement, every lasting success is the result of minds working in alignment with a shared goal, shared effort, and shared belief. And here's what most men never realize. Trying to do it all alone isn't strength, it's limitation. Your full potential will only be unlocked through alliance. So take a hard look at your circle, not just who's there, but who brings clarity when your vision blurs, who adds fuel when your fire fades, who reminds you why you started when doubt creeps in. Because a true alliance isn't built on comfort, it's built on commitment to something greater. And the moment you stop trying to carry the weight alone, that's when the real momentum begins. You don't need more motivation, you need reflection. Because chances are, you already know who's holding you back and who you've been avoiding building with.
Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing this word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Alright. And what I want to go into today, just expound, in this video, that I found. And it says, some pretty heavy points. And it speaks a lot, to scripture. And we have to understand, that the root of all wisdom is in the scriptures. And that's why we're able, to take, particular wise sayings, that are even, on these different platforms, and make sense of it, and filter it through the scriptures, man. Tie everything into the scriptures, because the scriptures is the root of all true wisdom in the earth. Okay? So, that video was speaking on, having a team, okay, that pushes you, having people around you, having a strong inner circle that pushes you. And I want to entitle this lesson, to build with the builders. Okay, because there's only two type of people, that you can be around, like takers and givers. Okay, people that, take away from your purpose, and people that add to your purpose. Okay, and it's true for most of us to be around those that add to our purpose. This brotherhood is supposed to be complementary, which each brother complements the next. Each brother with a particular gift, their particular perspective, their viewpoint, brothers, resources and, time and expertise is all to complement one another in this ministry, man, to push one another forward. And we come from, a nigga culture where it's so toxic, that crab, all right, and the barrel mentality. Okay, Jake, Lord to see you fail. Jake is here to, Jacob get close to you just to sabotage you. Okay, Jake is always, slick hating and, just plotting and scheming. Okay, and that's the culture that we come from. But see, the truth is the complete opposite, man. It's a body of men that has each other's best interests. And it was just, something that we didn't experience in the world. And that's, one of the beautiful things about this truth. We get a glimpse into the kingdom, where we're, going to be one big united family, with each other's best interests in mind, ruling the earth in righteousness under Yahweh Shai. Okay, so I want to get this in the book of Sirach, chapter 6, verse 6. It says, be in peace with many, nevertheless, have but one counselor of 1,000, man. So as we go through our day to day, we don't cause unnecessary strife or tension, between people that's not in the inner circle, because most of our relationships in this world are going to be surface level. People shouldn't know, the inner workings of how we move, or, what we're about, what we believe. Okay, we're not here to be open books. Okay, so yeah, we're at peace, with many. On speaking terms with many, but nevertheless, have but one counselor of 1,000. Remember when King Solomon, when he did, his trial, he said he found out of 1,000 men, one. And it shows you the rarity of a righteous man. Okay, of a man. He found one of 1,000. Of a woman, none. So that shows us, the ratio. We gotta keep that ratio in mind. And as we move, man, and as we, allow people into our inner circle. Okay, and this is why the scriptures, it's a filtering system, to determine what's good and what's not. And when we apply the scriptures, okay, in all these different situations, the scriptures act as a filter, okay, and a deterrence against those that are not worthy to be in that inner circle, man. Okay, and outside, the brothers, there's not many that should be in that inner circle. There really should be no one that's truly in that inner circle of the inner workings of what we're building, man. Okay, now when you read it again, it said, be in peace with many, nevertheless, have but one counselor of 1,000. If thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. So our inner circle should be based on men who have been proven over and over. Now, because there still come, betrayal and, men change up and fall out. Yeah, of course. You've been in this truth for, a second or two. These things happen. Okay, but that's rare compared to those that compared to those that that stick around. There's more men like the camp that I've started with, man. It's the same men except a few. Okay, but ultimately it's been the same brothers, since I started. You see, just speaking of, down here in the Mississippi camp, a lot of other camps, I had the honor of, going around other camps, man. But there's men, that just been around this whole time, and have remained solid, have grown in Yahweh Shai, proven men. You see? So our inner circle should be built up of what? Proven men in this truth, man. That's the inner circle. Okay, everything else is surface level and on the outside. Okay, and we have to be mindful of that. All right, it says, read it again. It says, if thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him. So we're not in the time, okay, of allowing people in that's not proven, man. They can be detrimental to you and the other people in the circle. Because everyone that's in the inner circle is like a door. And we have to be mindful what we let in our situation, because we can open the door up, to unnecessary strife, madness. Okay, so we have to be mindful, man. All right, now let's go from there. Okay, because the scriptures tell us, the type of men, that we should be around. Okay, when you go to Sirach 27, okay, in verse 12 it says, if thou be among the indiscreet, observe the time, but be continually among men of understanding. You know, so the indiscreet are those on the outside of this thing, man. You know, and it tells us to be observe the time, which means to what? We're limited, okay, of how we're around these people. Okay? We have to be mindful. Okay? Have to be mindful what we say, how we move, you know, what we reveal to them. All right? And just even being around them, you know, we have to observe the time. We have to be limited, man. What said be continually among men of understanding. You know? Because we don't have to be, you know, brothers, you know, men need their space. So it ain't about being all up under, you know, a brother 24/7. But even when we watch these videos, we watch these lives, all right, we fellowship from time to time, the camp, you know, that's us being continually around men of understanding, reading the scriptures, you know, being occupied in scriptures, man, reading, you know, the scriptures say, you know, matter of fact, let's get it, you know, he that is, Sirach 39:1, it says, but he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of the ancient and be occupied in the prophecies, man. So even when we go into the scriptures, we're around men of understanding, because the Bible is full of wisdom and accounts of our forefathers, men of understanding. Okay? So we should be occupied, all right, and constantly be around, continually be around men of understanding, because it increases our understanding. It gives us new viewpoints. That's why you can read an account in the scriptures, or you can read, you know, the book of Proverbs or Sirach, and you can have a new perspective and wisdom. You know, we're constantly getting these new perspectives and wisdom, and you have other men that's doing the same thing. So when we come together, you have all these wise perspectives. You know, this brother might have read, you know, Sirach, you know, the 39th chapter. You know, this brother done read Proverbs, the 10th chapter. This brother done went into the history of, you know, Chronicles, you know, the Babylonian Empire. And then brothers get together in fellowship, and you just have all those different wise perspectives coming together and building in the spirit, man. You know, and everybody has each other's best interests in mind. Okay? Even when you go here, okay? All right, this is Sirach 37:10. It says, consult not with one that suspected thee, and hide thy counsel from such as envy thee. Okay? So we shouldn't be having particular conversations with that. You know? We shouldn't be having, you know, particular conversations with the outside. There's certain things that's reserved for the inner circle, man. You know? And we have to understand one thing about this world, man. These people cannot be trusted, man. Even some men and women in the truth cannot be trusted, man. Okay? We don't know the inner workings of a lot of these people, man. Especially people that haven't been proven, man. You know? That's why there's a strict, okay, proving ground before coming into the camp, man. Okay? It's not the, you know, like these other camps that are all about numbers. You know, you get a pamphlet on Tuesday, and Friday and Saturday you're shoulder to shoulder, okay, in the midst of the camp, bringing out precepts, hearing certain conversations, man, and nobody know your ass, man. Okay, nah, man. Okay, and you know, you understand, man. This is a spiritual thing, man, and the spirit's on people to be adverse to us, man, even beyond what they understand. See, that's another viewpoint of the scripture. See, we understand their motives better than them, and that all comes from this wisdom, man. Okay, verse 11, it said, neither consult with a woman touching her, all right, of whom she is jealous, neither with a coward in matters of war, nor with a merchant concerning exchange, nor with a buyer of selling, nor with an envious man of thankfulness, nor with the unmerciful man touching kindness, nor with the slothful for any work, nor with an hireling for a year of finishing work, nor with an idle servant of much business. Hearken not unto these in any matter of counsel, man. Okay? You see? So when you dealing, you know, you deal according. See, when you with the prophets, hey, you speak on the business of the prophets, man. Okay? You deal with people according to their expertise, man. And we're prophets. This is what we do. Okay? So you deal with people according to their expertise, man. You can't have, you know, the same conversation that you have with brothers, with people in the world. Okay, they're people that have, this is not their expertise. This is not their line of business. This is not what they do. Okay, they don't understand the severity of what's at stake, of what's going on. Okay, verse 12 said, but be continually with a godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry, man. Okay, so once again, be continually with a godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments, man, who has the fear of the Lord. Okay, someone who's governed by the fear of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, someone with the same mind, man, that's ready to see prophecies come to pass, to see Yahushua establish the throne of David in the earth, man. People with your best interests in mind, man. Surround yourself about, we have to be surrounded with a good circle, man. There shouldn't be people, in your inner circle that got you doubting yourself, making you like you some villain, and, making it seem as if, you're not, doing enough, and, you should be, just that negative, toxic shit that comes from nigga culture, man. You don't want that in your inner circle, man. You see? The inner circle should be a men, proven men. Okay? That has the same mind. That we all have the same mindset towards Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Okay? And it's all about, uplifting, man. Of course, there's rebuke and correction, and, brothers gonna push you if we're not active enough. Of course, we're gonna get a kick in the ass when needed, but that's out of love, man, not to tear down. Okay, so let's go here, because even and you go here to Philippians 2:1, it says, is there any encouragement? It's the NLT. Is there any encouragement from belonging to Hamashiach? Any comfort from his love? Any fellowship together in the spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, working together with one mind and purpose. Okay, tapped in on the same purpose, man. And each brother complimenting one another, man. Because I say, you've been in the truth a second or two, man. Man, that brothers can become toxic, man. And the spirit eventually, root them out. But just experiencing, someone that's toxic, that negative spirit, man, like even when they come around, man, the whole atmosphere of the room changes, man. It suppresses the spirit. You gotta tiptoe. Jake be sensitive. You say something and he make a big deal. He like, God damn. Can't even speak as men. He like, God damn. Nah, man. Same mind, same purpose, man. Tapped in. Okay? It said, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble. Thinking of others better than yourselves. Thinking of others better than yourselves, man. Okay? Always, seeing how we can be a better benefit to the body. Even when we, pour into ourselves, that's another thing, man. We got to pour into ourselves so we can have more to pour into, the sincere brothers, man. The body, man. So anything that's, attacking, our peace, anything that's, trying to bring negativity, nah, man, that can't be in the inner circle, man. Okay? The inner circle, our inner circle should be sacred, and it's something I'm learning more and more. Okay? So it says, verse 4 says, don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Yahweh, that Yahweh Shah Hamashiach had, man. Okay, and Yahweh Shah was the prime example. His whole life was dedicated to the interest, of what? Israel, man, beginning with the elect. His whole life was dedicated towards the interest of Israel. That's why he didn't have a lot going on in his life, man, outside the ministry and teaching, You see? And we follow the same format. Each brother has their portion, and, you know, their perfect gift, you know, outside the truth, you know, things that, you know, they have going on. Okay, but we follow the format of Yahweh Shah, man, which is our life is dedicated for the interest of the believers, man, enduring all things for the elect's sake, man. You know, and we have a body of men, you know, that's in the same interest, okay, with the same mindset, man. And that's the inner circle. That's all right. That's who we gonna win with, man. You know. So Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters are edified. Till next time I say Shalom. Going by Shalom. Bob will ball soon.